Angela Foster, honey, it is so good to see you again. I feel like we've been close friends via Instagram. I've been loving your content. I feel like you're a soul sister from across the pond, and I'm so happy to have you today.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be with you again. And yeah, I feel exactly the same. I'm super excited for this.
Well, I know it's been a while since you've been on the show, like a while. And
Wow,
I,
yeah.
I would love for you to share your story because I know right now you are focused on the metrics that matter, the longevity metrics. And you're super dialed, a mom in your career, but still really honoring your body. And I know that it wasn't always that way. So can you share a little bit about, what you've learned and how your journey has really transformed the way that you take care of women?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to. And it's so funny because, when I reflect on this more and more over the years, I think I learn more about why I kind of had such a mental and physical health crisis. It just, like, as the passage of time goes, I get kind of further insights, which hopefully will help any women listening to this who may be going through a similar thing. So I started out as a corporate lawyer in London, which is really like super long hours, crazy. We'll do anything to literally get the deal done. So it was all nighters, weekends, holidays cancelled. And I don't know about you, but like when I was in my 20s, I felt pretty invincible. Do you know that feeling?
Yeah. Oh, and stress was my secret weapon.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, I'll leverage that any day if it means I have a competitive edge. I
100%.
I didn't know I was stealing from myself.
I didn't. And you know what? I don't know about you, but I ignored the signs as well
Oh
because
yeah.
I had PCOS and I didn't realize initially I was just prescribed birth control, which we now know is not good. And then eventually I had to have surgery and they discovered I had endometriosis as well. So that was like my first foray when I found out I had the PCOS of looking at how do I take charge of my metabolic health because I realized that. So I was making changes, but still practicing as a lawyer. And then I fell pregnant quite quickly after surgery with my eldest son. And I had my two boys very close together. They were 18 months apart. So by the time I was 3 months pregnant, by the time I was due to go back after maternity leave, I was 3 months pregnant with my second. So it was all kind of quite intense. And I just made partner when I was 8 months pregnant. So it was all kind of crazy. And I really struggled with postpartum depression. So I decided to, at that point, take a career break. And I got my mental health back on track. But then when I had my daughter, that's when my hormones really crashed. And I think looking back, Mariza, now I realize things like, imagine the drop off that we see in things like progesterone, right? That can affect our mood and estrogen post pregnancy. But no one ever mentioned any of this to me. I was just prescribed antidepressants. And then I was given eventually, after 2 years, antipsychotic medication. Things had gotten so bad. And then eventually, I just had kind of created this prison in my own mind because I just couldn't be with myself, couldn't be with my thoughts, but didn't want to leave my kids without a mother. So I just felt really trapped. And that's when it took its toll on my immune health. And I eventually ended up hospitalized with double pneumonia. And that's where it really hit me because, I was in hospital, I was neutropenic, my white blood cell count was so low. Thank God at the time they didn't tell me that they thought they were going to have to intubate me, but they were kind of giving me a few days. And when my kids came to see me, it was in that moment when they left that I really connected, I think, with myself, with my love for them. And I was like, it was like a wake up. I've got to get well. Like, how have I arrived here? And what's so crazy is as soon as I made that decision, within 48 hours, my blood work started to change. So my white blood cell count started to rise and I started to heal. And then that was really the beginning of my journey coming out of getting myself back on track. And it took some time, a few years, I should say. And then I decided I'm going to switch careers here. I'm not, I'm going to actually develop a career in health where I can help women because I think it's so needed. I don't know about you, but I don't think there's ever been a time in history where women have needed more support than they do now. And so then in 2019, I started the podcast, basically trying to marry up these two worlds because I'd had high performance, but then I'd had burnout really badly and mental health issues. And then I'd got myself really, really healthy, but I wanted to bring those two things together. And that's when the kind of concept of high performance health was born. And then, just since then, I've been loving what I do. Yeah, it's just so mission driven.
I want to unpack a lot because wow, what a journey. What a journey. I want to go back to the hospital where your littles, and how little were they? Were they under 5 at the time? Like what?
Yeah, so they would have been at that point, by the time I was hospitalized, my youngest was 2, which is why they weren't calling it postpartum by that stage, right? It was major depressive
It
disorder.
still feels like postpartum. I just,
Mm.
I
It
know
does.
that the way that the
I know.
diagnostics. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
funny, isn't it, how they moved on? But I think at that point, I was kind of having, I guess, what they were calling bipolar episodes. I didn't have bipolar because I was swinging between being like super mum and then these big crashes, which is what they were trying to stabilize. So my youngest daughter, she had just turned 2, and then my other two were 5 and 6.
Okay. 5 and 6. So yeah, very young. So they come and visit you. I can't even imagine just, I mean, being that sick and then having to be hospitalized and away from your children, especially with the 2-year-old. I mean, it's still,
Mm.
I mean, a lot of ways, still a baby,
Still a
like
baby,
not really talking a lot, trying, but it's just that
yeah.
phase. And then deciding the decision that, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I am going to shift. Talk to me about the deciding not only in your own journey, but in the journey of the women that you get to take care of. There is so much power in the decision, in the mindset shift that I'm doing it differently this time.
100%. 100%. Exactly what you say. Because I think, when we look at the Latin word decide, right, it means to cut off. And at that moment, I was absolutely cutting off. Like, this can't be my reality anymore. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I had no idea how I was going to rebuild everything because I'd lost touch with my spirituality, with my connection with myself. I'd lost my purpose. You know how I was saying, like, when the more I reflect on it with the passage of time, the more I can kind of unpack what happened. I think that having been a successful corporate lawyer, leaving law, I lost my identity and I hadn't realized it. So I think that really impacted my mental health as well. I don't think it was just postpartum and the hormones. And so when I made that decision, it was really driven by these kids need a mum. Like, I want to see them grow up. And that was the first time because it was such a mindset shift. Because previously, when I was feeling the depression, when I was struggling to get out of bed, I felt like I wasn't worthy of a place in their lives and that they would be better off without me. And
Mm.
so this deep sort of shame and low self-worth came with that depression. And when I was at the hospital and they came to see me and they left and I looked at photos, that's when I just felt this real tug and just how kind of bound, right, as a mum you are, how much you love them. And I wanted to get out of there because there was a very real chance at that point that I might not.
Mm. You said that although I decided, and thank you so much for breaking down the Latin. I didn't know, to cut off, but that you didn't know how. And I just want to reflect on that. Anyone listening, that you don't need to know all of it. You don't need to know the how of how it's all going to happen. You just need to make the decision. And I mean, there's a trust in that the right people, the right teachers, or that you're going to get the right information that's going to propel you forward. I was sharing with you that I was recovering from post-concussion syndrome 2 summers ago, literally right now. The podcast still kept going. We had enough interviews to kind of keep it running. It's, they were just like non-negotiables in my business where I was like, we have to just keep these things running. But I wasn't
Yeah.
working at all. I was in a dark room for weeks. And I remember when I finally was able to like enough to think. And I remember thinking, I remember doing all the research when I was able to finally look at a computer, look at a phone, anything without getting dizzy or nauseous or feeling like I was going to get another migraine. I remember I knew I had a 90-day window to clear up these concussion symptoms, or it was going to be more long-standing damage. And I remember deciding, and I didn't exactly know all the protocols or all the things or what I was going to do. I didn't know how it was going to look, but I had decided. And I also, after deciding, I imagined my future self 6 months down the road. I think it was 5.5 at the end of the year. And I imagined who she was, what she was doing, what she had done, what she said yes and no to. I saw her living this life that I wanted. And I just kept imagining her as my North Star. Did you ever find yourself imagining who you were wanting to become, or who, like,
Yeah.
was it still the corporate attorney?
No, it wasn't. It
Yeah.
was, yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? Because I'd left and I felt I'd lost my identity. Now I had this new identity because I fully stepped into, I'm going to be the healthiest I've ever been, mind, body, spiritual, healthy. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, as you say, and I didn't need to know. But I had, so much what you read around success, and we talk about your future self and everything you're saying, you don't need to know the path, you need to know the why. You also have to have unwavering faith, right? And I only connected with the reality where I was well. So even when, and I think this is so, so important, right, is that you don't entertain a reality where you're not. Because when I came out of hospital, they then wanted to do a repeat CT scan on my lungs, and they were doing lung function tests to see how much damage. And they were expecting more damage. And when I was first going for the test, I couldn't have it done because I got another chest infection. But I didn't even entertain at that point, could I be in hospital again? Could this all go wrong? I was just 100% focused on, I am going to be the healthiest I can ever be for the sake of my children. And I didn't let anything else come in. And so each time there was an obstacle, I was able to overcome it because that will was so strong.
Mm.
So I love what you said there, because 100% that's how I approached it.
Yeah, I mean, this is you. This is maybe the dark night of the horse for you, right?
Yeah.
This is the moment where you're like, I'm at a default. I'm at a fork in the road, and I am deciding right now. I want to fast forward because you have created such a beautiful community, such a beautiful business, but just based on purpose and mission, and really probably in that moment, in that defining moment, in that decision. And I'm curious, what are you deciding today? As you wake up, your non-negotiables, are you grounded in a decision? Are you grounded in commitment? Talk to me about what it looks like now. Because I'm not going to assume that you're in perimenopause. I'm going to tell you that I am.
I'm 100%. I can just clear that one up. 100% into perimenopause. Probably not that far off going actually through it and being postmenopause. I'm 49, so yeah, I'm 100% in perimenopause. Yeah, and that is like, that's the messy middle, isn't it? I mean, what happens there? The challenges, and one of the things, just as an aside, that I was unprepared for is I didn't realize how much, I suppose, extra risk women who've had postpartum are exposed to in terms of mental health issues in perimenopause. And that kind of caught me out of the blue as well initially. And so I had to suddenly work harder again. It was hard when I transitioned off all of the medication and then I was stable, but then perimenopause hit and I was like, whoa, like now I'm getting like bipolar again, right? Because my moods would just swing and I would get this crippling anxiety that I'd never had before. So yeah, 100% I'm in perimenopause. But I think now in terms of my non-negotiables, I'm just 100% committed to being the healthiest I can. And I think my mental health takes front and center because I know that we can do anything if we're mentally strong. And so, my morning routine, everything is really centered around keeping my mental health strong. And 3 years ago, it ended up that I gave up alcohol completely. I realized that my relationship with alcohol wasn't great. So that was a kind of final step. I wasn't an alcoholic or anything, but I didn't have the relationship that I wanted with it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a shift that happens it happened before my 40s where alcohol and we had to part ways. And
break up.
Yeah, I was like, we don't get along anymore. Like I used to be a bartending mixologist when I was younger in college, and I was a great bartender. I loved a great bourbon, a great tequila. I loved good champagne. I loved amazing Italian wine. Like I could pair alcohol with food all day long. Like this is what I made a lot of money doing that job. And so it became like, and especially living in the Bay Area in San Francisco, like it was just a thing to do. And I never thought alcohol would leave my life. And then when I was priming up, when I got my Hashimoto's diagnosis at 38 and I was priming to get pregnant at 40, I just let it was gone then, just as a way to prime up my body and really like create better egg quality. But then after that postpartum, I was breastfeeding. It just kind of never came back. I'll be 46 in a couple months. And every time I even have like a half a glass of red wine, like really good, not crappy wine. We're talking like a nice Bordeaux or a super Tuscan or something like that. And it takes my sleep. I feel like hot garbage the next day. And I'm like, there's nothing about this that's serving me outside of I love it the way that it tastes, but that's it. Like the back end is just not worth it.
It's not worth it. And you and I were like sharing offline, right? Like,
have you
oh my God,
my HRV?
Whoop will tell you about your alcohol. You've had alcohol with Whoop. There's no lying. I used to, when I had like Aura, you could kind of get away with it with the Aura ring, but Whoop there's no messing around.
Yeah, I even a continuous glucose monitor, Whoop and a continuous glucose monitor. You drink the night before, you will see it in your fasting glucose and you will see it in your HRV, your resting heart rate, and your sleep is just tanked. So I just, again, the data is so clear. but also how I feel. So I was curious how you felt. I want to go back to the mental health aspect of perimenopause really quickly, but I've been loving your content on alcohol and that you had made the choice that it just wasn't serving you anymore.
Yeah, it wasn't serving me. And I think in 2022, my father passed away. And that's when, like, grief is another thing, right? So, for anyone who's had mental health issues, grief will plunge you into that sadness. And it feels very similar. And I think I had to reassure myself, this is the loss of my dad, this is grief. But what I found was that just as I'd done when I was a lawyer, is a glass of wine was a really easy way to switch off. And so that was a way to kind of, like, I suppose, hide my feelings in a way. And so it would just make me feel calmer and then more relaxed. And then, and that was why I would do it. But I realized that's not a really healthy relationship. And as you say, it wasn't working with my hormones. So I initially started with this 90-day challenge of, like, I'm going to give up alcohol for 90 days. And I was really curious, when you see the research, is at University of Oxford, but there's research around 66 days to break a habit. Well, I was curious, when would I stop, ever getting that message of it would be a great idea to have a glass of wine on a Saturday or Friday evening. And actually, it took me around 55 days. And then the noise started to go. And then I got to 90 days and I was like, I'm so close to 100, I might as well do 100. And then it was like 6 months and then a year. And then, you know what? That was just the type A in me. I think actually I was feeling so much better. And I was like, how do you break 365 days? That's just like, so then I just put this challenge out. I was like, I'll do 1,000 days. And then, you know what? I'll know what the decision is at 1,000 days. And then when I went through that, I just haven't gone back. So I feel better without it.
Yeah, yeah. It took me. I mean, I had so many years of hiatus, and then I would have a little bit, like we're talking a couple sips of somebody's something, or even a half of something, and then it wouldn't serve, and then I would take another 9 month hiatus, and then there would be some super special, amazing occasion where it felt appropriate, and then I would be like, nope. I feel like I just
Yeah.
kept having to learn the lesson, like every year, or every 9 months, or every 2 years, and I'm just like, gosh, why do you just come back to this? Just you and I don't know. It was the lesson I needed to learn. I think because alcohol was so embedded into my life for so long, I thought, well, maybe, like these little special occasions, it could be okay. And it's never been okay. Every time I'm like, have you learned a lesson? Because I feel like you should have learned a lesson by now. It's been a very long time, but
That's
still.
so funny. I was like that. I must say, I'd done lots of times where I'd given up, for a little bit before and then gone back to it. But it's really interesting. I don't know if you've ever interviewed TJ Power. He's a neuroscientist in the UK. He wrote the book, The Dose Effect. And I was speaking to him about just the effect of so dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And we were talking about the effect that dopamine has on mood. And some people, and this was me, like if I had a sip of wine, I don't know about you, but I would get this like, oh my God, that feels amazing. That kind of effect where you just get this really high dopamine. And yeah, he was explaining that after about a year, if you don't have alcohol, all your dopamine receptors just like go back to kind of baseline. So I think now I have even more trepidation. Do you know what I mean about going back?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally hear you. I want to speak into your type A tendencies, your superpower. Let's call it a superpower because I love that it leveraged that superpower for the alcohol piece. So I want to talk about how it can be an absolute superpower. And then how do you kind of keep it in check when you need to keep it in check? Do you have a way of doing that? Or does it just kind of, for me, it's a default mode. So it just automatic. It's automatic. I have to keep it under control.
Are you the type of person, because this is me, where I have to, some people say I have to discipline myself to exercise or have to motivate myself. I have to discipline myself to recover. Like
Yeah.
it takes a
I have to
massive effort to
discipline
run and
myself.
warm up.
Yeah, to not be productive. And I use
Yeah.
language like inspired action. I'm
Yeah.
taking inspired action. No, I am just I don't stop. Like, I'm over efforting all the time. And it's my nature. That's how
That's
I
very
am. That's
similar.
how I'm built.
Yeah.
So if I don't want to over effort myself into a hole, which that's happened many times in my life, I feel like I may be heading in that direction again. I have a lot of safety cues that I'm constantly saying my brain safety signals. That one of my favorite mantras is to say nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong.
Nothing's
Because
wrong.
I'm always looking for something to fix, to do,
Yeah.
so I'm always trying to find peace. So there's a lot of things that I do to kind of stop myself from doing what I always do. if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I'm the same, I would say. Like, I think I've had to work really hard at it. And you know what? Giving up alcohol laid bare. Oh my God, actually, I'm a bit of a workaholic because if I didn't, like, if there was a routine where I could have a glass of wine, chat to my husband, catch up on the day, that's great because you're not going to go back to work. But then if there isn't that stop, so I then started going out for nature walks in the evening, which was amazing in summer. That doesn't happen in winter.
No, you
But
can't
I
do that in
think
winter.
it doesn't work in
Where you're
winter.
at.
No. No.
Where I'm at, yes, but not for you.
Yeah, definitely not in the UK. And so it was kind of, I had to address that. But I think that, like, yeah, like you, I mean, I used to always just like go, 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 burnout and then do it again and repeat and say I won't. But I think I've started now, I think I recognize the signs. And I think if there's any wavering in my mood, that's a really good indicator. But also, like, I pay attention to my HRV. If that starts really going down, I know that's a sign. I also have got better now at paying attention to my recovery in terms of my workouts. Like before, I would just go, well, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to push through. Whereas now I'm like, okay, I'm under recovered. Do you know what? It's going to be gentle walking and stretching today. And so I've got better at that, better at listening to my body.
I love that. I want to speak into, and I do appreciate, I think for someone like, at least I want to speak for myself, for someone who will over push and over effort workouts, all the things. And I do trust my body. I try to listen to my body, but being able to see metrics in real time has been a game changer because I've trained myself to not listen. And I've gotten much better about it in perimenopause, particularly because I think you have to. You don't have a choice. But it's getting to see metrics all the time. I look at my HRV every morning, my resting heart rate every morning. I'm looking at all of these things to kind of see, okay, am I tanking? Do I need to cancel that workout I scheduled today? Not that I'm not listening to my body. I mean, yesterday I had a migraine. I could feel it coming on the night before. I canceled the workout the night before. And then yesterday was walking. And I think I did get a little mini Peloton session in, but like zone 2 cardio, like nothing.
I love your like, oh, maybe I just got a little mini.
like a little something. The reason why I'm asking is particularly in perimenopause, I feel like it's the collision. I mean, a lot of things are shifting, a lot of things are changing, but in terms of the brain related symptoms and the mental health aspect, yes, if you had pretty serious postpartum depression and anxiety, or you struggle with really severe PMS symptoms or anxiety, or even PMDD, we know that on average, we'll see an exacerbation of those mental health symptoms. And even if that didn't happen and you're living a type A, more high stress, more productivity type of life, which many of us are, many of the women are listening to this show, listening to your show, when hormones begin to, I call it erratically decline without permission, and you already have that stress response system that is a little bit overactivated, I feel like it clashes together and we begin to see more of those mental health signals as well. That was this is my experience.
100%. And that's my experience. Yeah. And I think like personally and then also professionally, and I think, we know that estrogen is linked with serotonin. And I think also that even, other things which are really interesting as well. I think we overlook things like how iron deficiency can affect our neurotransmitters and can affect things like GABA. And many women in early perimenopause are actually deficient in iron. I know that's something I've really struggled with with a background in particular of PCOS and endometriosis. And so I think like I've learned that staying on top of your micronutrients is also really, really important. But I think with the mental health stuff, for me, the biggest thing has been exercise, because exercise, we know like they release myokines, right? Which are these anti-inflammatory molecules. They're also dubbed hope molecules, and just really helps to boost your mood. And that has been my go-to. So I think the more I've been consistent with things like exercise, getting morning sunlight, fitting in short, like when I say short breathwork sessions, I mean like some deep breathing, is because so when we work with clients, we use things like Whoop or Aura or whatever wearable that they're working with, but we also will quite often use a device called First Beat that does this. It's this medical grade technology that takes constant heart rate and HRV readings. And what we've found is we'll just do a period of assessments, is that if you're redlining it all day, you're often redlining it at night. Not in all cases. Some people are really good at like just winding down, relaxing, and then getting into that deep sleep. But quite often they have this pattern of being really overactivated at night. And so then they don't get that deep repair. And so these kind of micro activities of going out for a short walk, doing some stretching, doing like 3 minutes of breathing 3 times a day. It's not a lot. Even if it's 1 minute, can just kind of down regulate that sympathetic activity that's, driving you to be kind of so head up and just minimize a lot of that mental health instability, but also get you that deep recovery, which is what we need, because we know that sleep is affected, right? And
Oh, yeah.
that's the
Sleep
big thing
is
for
a
me.
game changer. I always say sleep will make or break me. It will make or break me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women don't realize that it will, because we've been used to not getting good sleep consistency or good sleep quality. But when you start to look at those numbers and you start to really, when you start, I always say, like, it's like taking out ultra processed foods. If you haven't ever taken out ultra processed foods out of your diet before, you just kind of don't know what it feels like to eat clean food. And then you take it out and you're like, oh my goodness. Or even cutting out alcohol. If you're consistently drinking alcohol at night, you just kind of just don't know. And then you give it up for a minute and you're just like, oh my God, this is a different brain. Like what?
So true.
But I think sleep is the same. I think a lot of, we still think we can kind of fudge it, or we're just inconsistent, right? Where it's social jet lag. We're like, it's just inconsistent. And it just,
Yeah.
you kind of just are used to that default mode. But man, I can tell when I'm not getting good sleep, which is really rare. I am really good at sleep. Travel is the thing that tanks me, that I have a really hard time recovering when it comes to sleep. But sleep, I think, is a game changer. I wanted to go back to movement really quickly, exercise. I find heavy lifting, strength training. I mean, I'm obsessed. I love it. But that's not the thing that calms my nervous system. So it's walking outside in nature. And it's something about walking that helps to regulate our nervous system, and there's a lot of research there, but also reading,
100%.
eyes moving back and forth on the page. I find it can really help in regulating the stress response.
Oh, do you know what's really interesting? So when COVID hit, right, in 2020, and we were just spending so much time together as a family because we had this like really long lockdown here in the UK, we were all reading as a family. We were reading Harry Potter. And the effect of reading fiction, my HRV was just like rising. It was amazing, just because I think a lot of people, they go, yeah, I'll do reading and that will help me. But then it's so easy to fall into, I'll read another health book, right? Or another mindset book. And that's kind of like still associated with what you do. Whereas if you pick up fiction, like that is amazing. And I love what you were saying about nature walking. Personally, like with the resistance training, I find that I'm too addicted to it. I actually have to dial back because it creates order in my brain. I don't know if it's just counting the reps, but somehow it stops that kind of ADD style brain that I have and regulates me for the day. But then I realize, oh my God, I've strength trained 5 days in a row. Like my body is aching so much.
Everybody. That is high performance.
Now I need to rest. That was this morning. Yeah.
I think we all got to find the thing that works for us in terms of supporting our mental health, particularly in midlife and perimenopause. And I love breath work. I sit in my sauna and I read a lot of fiction.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I want to say books saved my life initially. And it was fiction that saved my life when I was a really young girl. And I did a whole podcast episode recently on the 7 books that will transform your life. And most of them were personal development. But fiction was what saved me when I was 13 years old. Hence why I write books. I'm like, I want to help somebody else. But it was many, many years where I stopped reading fiction entirely. And it was just health books, personal development books, or business books. It was all about like learning, like up leveling the game. And I was in the dark night of the soul last year. We were in a major mold remediation. And I still was kind of recovering from the brain injury. And I was like, man, I need something different. And Dune, Messiah, whatever was coming out, and we had Dune on Audible. And so I read it and I was like, okay. And I was like, I need another fiction book. Like, I just need escapism. I need to get out of here. And I just looked on Amazon, what are the top fiction books? And there was this book that had over 200,000 reviews. And I'm like, okay, if it's got 200,000 reviews,
it's got to be good.
Let's do this. Okay. And it was about dragon riders. It ended up being Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, which is like this insane romantic fantasy. And I listened to it on Audible because often I do always read books as well, but I can get through Audible books much faster. And it was my gateway drug. I have consumed 150 of these books since last April.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, that's a lot. You definitely, I'm going to say you listen on 2 times speed minimum, right?
I do. I listen to 2x speed. 1.85 if I really need that's the lowest.
We need to slow it down.
Yeah. So I usually consume about 5 books a week, give or take.
Do you ever find that if you have a conversation, like you can't listen to something on Audible at that speed and then record a podcast or have a conversation with someone because now you're like,
I'm already like that.
It's like, slow down. If I speak to my assistant, it's like, slow down.
I listen to podcasts on 2.0 speed as well. And I have a feeling I can't listen to mine. on 2.0 because I'm already too fast. And so I apologize, all of you listening, and you're just like, this woman. So I usually listen to mine at 1.5 or 1.75. Like, and that's still quick, but I'm just I mean, I don't know. I feel like I just have to get a lot of things out at a very short amount of time because there's only so much time in the day. Like,
There is. It's so true. It's so true.
my son, I'm like, time is the most finite resource that we have. He's 4.5. I doubt he was understanding what I was talking about, but it's important that, we have a lot to say.
100%. Yeah, so true.
Okay, so you're strength training 5 days a week to regulate anything else that you're doing to support the brain related symptoms, the mental health symptoms.
In terms of like boosting my mental health.
Yes, because so many women are coming
So
to me with this specifically.
are they? Okay. Yeah. So for me, exercise. So sometimes like 4 or 5 days a week in terms of strength training, I'll do a high intensity workout, keep it really short, do some sprints with like longer recoveries in between. And that just gives me like a really good mood boost. But like you, walking is amazing. Like that's my go-to. Even simple things, right? Like going and stroking your dog or your cat, being with a pet really just calms your nervous system and I think helps boost your mood, I've found. The other thing is, like, I don't know about you, everyone is obsessed with protein and creatine, but so am I. Like, for good reason. Like, if you haven't slept well, creatine can help with those sleep deficits. And I think it's just, you've got better brain energetics. I find when I'm taking creatine, my brain just works better and that supports my mood. I find magnesium, that kind of calms that type A in me a little bit. Omega-3, really, really powerful in terms of like brain support and helping with mood. And then I think just like, staying in alignment with my purpose has been really helpful. Like, really just living in alignment, in sync with my priorities and my values has been a big, big one for me as well. So that I carve out time for my family. I spend time with my kids because they're the reason that I've ended up where I am, right? And I'm so and that was my big thing, to spend time with them and be a mum to them. And so I think that focusing on what really lights you up. I think so often it's Steve Jobs, I think, who always talked about signal versus noise. And I think too often we're engaging with so much noise. And if we can just stay in our center, right, and our path of what we want to do and follow more of that signal, I found that for me is where I feel more peaceful, more happy. And yeah, I don't have the same instabilities that I used to. And then the alcohol's made a huge difference too.
Mm. No, I so deeply appreciate it because I want to know like what's working for you, and not that clinically you're taking care of so many women that it's working for, but there's something to be said about someone who is operating at such a high performing, life. What are you doing, especially when mental health has been something that you've had to navigate in the past? So thank you so
Yeah.
much, Angela, for sharing.
Yeah. There's some of the other things I would say, like, we talked about creatine, which I
Yeah.
think is really helpful, but then also like I do take NAD precursors. That's like really majorly helped with my energy levels. And I think again, that comes back to energy. Doing the activities you talk about, like sauna, for example, really, really helpful. But I think that being careful, if you're looking at adaptogens and things, like for example, some women really don't get on with ashwagandha. And there's a lot of kind of like stuff coming out now about its impact just around mental health. And for me, I have to be careful with how much ashwagandha I would have. Do you know what I mean? So I think just knowing yourself and not following necessarily what everyone's doing and deciding, does this work for me? Because it does work for me. But I think for some people, you need to be careful with how much. And so if you're using things that have strong impacts on the body, then you want to be careful and know that they are working for you. Do you know what I mean? And check in with yourself, with your data, like we were saying, but also just intuitively, how am I feeling?
I agree wholeheartedly. Not every adaptogen is going to work for everyone. Not all the things we're talking about today are going to be the thing, right? I think, and that's why, when we started this conversation was really about what are your non-negotiables, right? There's a lot of research. There's a lot of things we can be doing, but I think we have to take into account, one, what do we love? What's the biggest needle mover? What are our symptoms? And how do we want to feel moving forward? I think these are all that we got. And then our labs, we also got, what's going on in the labs? Like, do we need to make any changes there? Are hormones helping your journey? They are helping.
They are 100%.
Let's not forget those.
Let's not forget those. Hormones are really helping. And I think there again, right, that's where labs are important because, like when I was testing, some women don't absorb estrogel very well through the skin. And that was me, right? So it's like you really need to look at that and see, even with progesterone, like if you're using that, what's the right dose for you? Do you need some testosterone? I think running labs and working with someone really closely on that, that's been a huge thing. And you look at the data, and I'm not saying that it's wrong when women are prescribed antidepressant medication in perimenopause, because I think there can be benefits. But I think that if there hasn't been a discussion around whether hormones could help, that's a misstep. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah, I have a whole chapter in my book about that specific, well, about how do we cultivate peace and calm when we feel like we're in the zone of chaos. When all of a sudden we're dealing with a lot of these symptoms or symptoms that we thought we had managed from back in the day, all of a sudden are presenting themselves again and maybe more intensely. How is stress playing a role here? How are hormones playing a role? Your gut microbiome, all these aspects, but then also like what can we do? Our hormones, hormones are definitely one of those beautiful solutions. So before we're looking into the quick fix of an antidepressant or even maybe a combination birth control pill, can we be looking at hormone replacement therapy? And I get it's a very nuanced conversation that's very individually tailored to what you're going through.
100%. And I think, I don't know about you, but when I read Sarah E. Hill's book on your brain on birth control, and then I had her on the show, that just like really opened up my eyes because I was prescribed birth control from such a young age. And it is linked with things like major depressive disorder, which I ended up taking. So I think like just having really intelligent conversations now that there's so much information. And I can't wait to interview you on your book in a couple of weeks' time. Like I'm so excited because I know that, that's just going to be amazing and help so many women. I think everything you're saying there, I second all of that because I think it's so important. And we are so individual, right? What works for one woman doesn't necessarily work for the next.
Well, exactly. And what you said earlier is that, a lot of our brain is really the driver of so much. And if our mental health game isn't dialed as moms, as career women, as women who are upholding communities, whew, it can feel like it all just unravels and falls apart. And I will tell you, women come to me most, not weight resistance has always been the thing, or tanked energy, burnout. Yes. But man, in perimenopause, it is the rage. It's the mood swings. It is the low stress tolerance. It is the irritability. It's the horrible brain fog and lack of being able to be alert. Like it is so, the brain shifts are so destabilizing for women. They're just like, who am I anymore? I had a woman recently, a couple weeks ago, Ashley, he was like, am I going to get through this? Without losing my marriage and losing everything. And I just was like, you are, you are. And I also, like, it just breaks my heart. Just so many women are just struggling right now in this transition. And I just wanted her to feel seen and heard. I wanted to empathize because I feel like I've had some pretty dark moments in this journey myself.
It is so hard. And I think the more that we can connect with other women and get support, the better it is. I think one thing that I guess makes me positive is when we look at the happiness curve, like the hardest time for women is between 45 and 54. That also mirrors with men, right? And the happiness curve shows that it just trends up and up and up. And so sometimes looking at that data and realizing like this is the messy middle and good times are coming can be helpful because you can see a more empowering future. And I really see perimenopause as like a physiological fork in the road. You can decide which way you're going to go, right? And you can embrace everything about the woman that you're becoming and really step into your most empowered self because there's so many insights. I think that whenever you have any kind of breakdown and it feels hard and you feel that sense of resistance, sometimes as difficult as it is, and you do need to get help, but just to try and soften the edges a little bit, like soften into it and think about what am I really feeling here? Like, what does my body need right now? And how can I carve out some time? Because we are part of that sandwich generation, right? Where we are caring for aging parents, we've got children, and you just feel like there isn't that space for yourself. And that's why I say just even tiny moments can really make a big difference in being with your girlfriends.
Oh,
Like
everything.
that's huge.
Yes. Yes. Tell me, I want to hear about community for you. And I also want to hear about your future self. Who are you becoming? Who are you excited to become in this transition on the others? I mean, it's a continuum. There's no other side. I mean, you said like it's like the happiness curve is going to go up, but still there's no defining moment here, especially if you're on HRT, you're kind of never going to know.
No, that's true.
I'm never going to know when I go into menopause.
No, I was, I was having that conversation with my doctor the other day, and I was like, okay, so because I think I was traveling a lot, so I was having a cycle, and then I was traveling loads, and I was like, this is just really inconvenient because, like, I was getting quite heavy bleeding, so I was like, I'm just going to take the progesterone more constantly, and then that'll get me through these travel periods. And then I was like, oh, actually, I feel so much better like this, but now I don't have any periods. So I was like, how will I know? And she was like, well, I guess you'll never know. I don't know that it's that important that we need to know that menopause is one day, isn't it? The one day that marks a year from your last period. I don't feel I need to know that.
I don't.
I'm okay with that.
If it means I have to give up hormones to experience the one day, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, me too. So
I'm training for my grandma self. I'm training for my 70-year-old hiking self. So I'm so clear on where I'm going. And I know that not only am I doing things today to mitigate any type of shifts and changes, but also I'm double dipping, Angela. And I think you are too, where I'm dipping for now and I'm dipping for later. Like all the things that I'm doing, I am doing for my future self.
Yes, 100%. And I love what you say there, because I think like looking at your 90-year-old self and what she would want. And I get this. I don't know if you have this. Like when I have people that join my programs and they're maybe in their 60s, they feel like they're running out of time. And I'm like, we just need to widen your focus. Think about when you're 90, like that's 30 years away. That's such a long time. And then you can like backcast from there. I think I originally got this concept from Dr. Andy Galpin when I interviewed him, but if you like, for example, like you can predict if you're doing the right exercises, because if you want to hike in the hills, for example, I think you have to have, if I'm remembering correctly, you have to have a VO2 max of 30 mils per kilo per minute. So it's like, okay, so what's my VO2 max now? Am I improving it? And am I kind of going against what happens with aging, right? Is it naturally declines? Am I doing the workouts that are necessary that if I want to go hiking in my 80s, I still can? Do I have enough strength to actually put something in the overhead locker or run between airport terminals? I think we have way more control. And that's how I think just everything you're saying about future self, I love, because that's how we break it down. It's like, what do you want to happen? How do you want to live your life? And then let's put in place the exercise, the nutrition, the sleep, stress management strategies that are actually going to get you there, barring some crazy thing coming in between, right? Which none of us have control over. We have to accept that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I love that. All right, Angel, honey. Oh, I could do this all day, literally all day with you, all day.
Oh, you too.
You were such a bright light. It feels like talking to a girlfriend. It was just so conversational. Sometimes I'm interviewing people and it's just like a very back, question, answer, question. And this was just the flow. I just dearly adore you and admire you. I did admire you. Where can we get more of you? Your podcast is amazing. I love your Instagram. I know you have a beautiful program that you're going to talk to us about.
Thank you. And I just want to say exactly the same. I've just loved this conversation and I literally cannot wait to interview you on my podcast in a few weeks' time and talk about your book and everything. It's been so much fun. So if people want to connect with me, my podcast is High Performance Health and that's available on all platforms. My Instagram is where we kind of share longevity-based and hormone-based research, and that's Angela S. Foster. And then we have a 21-day hormone reset, which we open sometimes. So the best way to find out about that is to go to angelafoster.me/reset. And then you can just put your name in and get on the wait list for next time we run it. And we go through a lot of the things we've touched on here in terms of, stress resiliency, hormones, longevity, metabolism, all of those good things. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I've seen some of the content around that in social and it's looked so good. So please go and jump on. I'll have the link in the show notes. Angela, honey, it's been so delightful. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. Oh, I love it. Thank you. We have to meet in person one day.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments. And if you are ready to learn more about perimenopause and how to navigate with a lot of ease and grace, be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you can join our community. Don't forget to share this video with someone that you love, that you know is navigating the perimenopause journey as well, because they deserve to feel their best too. See you in the next video.